Chair, I can confirm you are live on YouTube.
I think, Chair, you're on mute.
Okay.
Yep, fine, we're fine now. Yep, lovely, thank you.
I thought I had the microphone on. Just again, start again then. Welcome everybody to the Area Museums Committee. It's good to have this meeting. Apologies for changing the time of the afternoon meeting, but it had to fit in with another meeting. So the Democratic Services Officer will now conduct a roll call to check who is present at the meeting. And when she calls out your name, could you please switch your microphone on and confirm your attendance by answering present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bubb.
Present.
Councillor DeWally.
Present.
Councillor Bullen, who is substituting for Councillor Kemp.
Present.
Councillor Tyler.
Present.
And I believe, Chair, that there is a county council meeting, so we don't have any county people joining the meeting at the moment, but we are quorate.
Okay.
And then we also have Kim Leonard, who's substituting for Susan Thompson, Friends of the Museum. And we have Robin Hanley from the Museum Service, and also Lindsay Bavin from Truesyard. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. As I say, welcome everybody. And thank you for, I believe you said Robin Hanley is in attendance and Rachel Williams. Oliver Bone not in attendance as you haven't asked his name.
No, I don't have Oliver in the meeting, but Rachel is in the meeting now, yes.
Lovely.
Chairman,
Well,
if I can just add, Oliver's struggling to get into the Zoom call. I've just had a couple of calls from him, so he's trying to get access at the moment, but for whatever reason is struggling. So if necessary, I will cover Oliver's items.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Robin. So please may I remind members that this meeting is being recorded and streamed live via YouTube. By attending this meeting, you are given your permission to be recorded and streamed. Members should ensure that their video is switched on during the meeting and their microphones are turned off until they are invited by the chairman to address the panel. And if you need to get my attention during the meeting or would like to ask a question, please could you use the chat function, and I'm happy for you to put your hand up like this if you need to. It may be easier actually as we're in a small group. And please do not interrupt other members or officers while they are presenting their report. So when addressing the committee, can you please state your name first so that all those present know who is speaking. Please speak clearly and concisely and get straight to the point. And please refer to the page number on the agenda. There are two numbers, I believe, on the agenda. If you can use the middle number. And if for any reason you need to leave the meeting early, please let me know in the chat. Right, thank you very much. And hopefully you've all seen and received the agenda and know what the reports are informing us all. So any apologies for absence, please, Wendy?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Kemp, substitute Councillor Bullen, also from County Councillor Thomas Smith, and from Susan Thompson from the Friends, but Kim Leonard is substituting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the minutes of our last meeting, which was a while ago, on pages 5 to 9. If you're happy for me to agree that they are all a correct record. Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Bubb. And matters arising, well, the only thing which isn't on the agenda I thought I would bring to your attention is about the partnership, one headed under partnerships, where it says about the black and white photographs of the Guildhall would be available for public display. I just wanted to point out that was a private individual who paid for the restoration of these black and white photographs. There was every intention that they were going to be placed on the wall during this summer's festival. Well, we all know festivals had to be cancelled, but they are hoping to have a festival in February when the art gallery will be open. So that's where they will be displayed. And also the conservation of Lady Fermoy's portrait that has been unveiled. That was unveiled in February, and of course will be on display when the festival has their programme. Okay. Any other matters to rise? I don't think there should be. I haven't been told anyway. Declarations of interest. Has anybody got any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Members attending under Standing Order 34. Are there any, Wendy? No? Okay.
No, there aren't any, Chair, under 34 today. Thank you.
Very much. So the next item then is the report from the Assistant Head of Museums, Robin. If Oliver isn't here, perhaps you could just go through some points of the report. It's a really long report to explain everybody what good work you've all been doing, even during COVID, with the digital work, to keeping everybody informed of all the objects and all the facts of history of what's actually been is in the museum. So you could just take us through the main points, Robin. That's very good.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As I say, if Oliver does manage to find his way into the Zoom call, I'll ask him to sort of contribute as we go through. So you'll have to bear with me for some of the items that Oliver would have been covering. I will do my best. This, as you say, Chairman, obviously we've been in very strange times over the last few months, and museum staff have been working very hard to adapt to this new environment. In the report, you've obviously got information about the initial impact of COVID. So just to give members a very quick update under section 1 of the report of where we are as a service, we actually closed all of our sites back on the 19th of March. And really from the very start of lockdown, we were focusing on ensuring that the sites remained secure and obviously doing essential collections checks as well. So that continued throughout the lockdown period. But also a significant number of museum service staff were also supporting other parts of the County Council's COVID activities, including helping coordinate volunteer activities, helping with food distribution, and making calls to vulnerable residents. So, as I'm sure was the same with Borough Council colleagues, a lot of museum service staff really helped with that general COVID response. So we're very grateful for the staff for being as flexible as they were. There's been an awful lot of activity going on during the lockdown period. Hopefully members will have been monitoring the Museum's Mardle staff e-newsletter, which comes out weekly. And if any members haven't been seeing that or would like to be added to the distribution list, please do let me know and we can ensure that you're added. That's a very useful weekly summary of all the different things that are going on across the service. So lots of digital activity taking place, but also since beginning of July, we've obviously been turning our attention to the careful and phased reopening of sites across the service when it's safe to do so. Legally, we were able to look at reopening museums from the 4th of July, and initially our focus was on the 3 larger sites across the service. So that was Norwich Castle, Gresnell Farm Workhouse, and Tide and Tide museums. Gresnell and Time and Tide opened over the weekend of the 18th to 20th of July, and initially that opening was for pass holders and friends only. And subsequent to that, we've now opened Norwich Castle, again, initially to pass holders and friends. From the beginning of August, Gresnell and Time and Tide were open to the general public, and we've been seeing good levels of visits since that reopening period. We're now turning our attention to the safe reopening of Lynn Museum. clearly, as members will be aware, there's a huge amount of work needed to reopen sites safely. We're obviously working very closely with the health and safety team at Norfolk County Council, and are also following national guidelines for museums reopening, which is set down by the National Museums Directors Council. For all of those sites that have reopened, we're going through a very similar process in terms of initially adapting the premises. So that includes the creation of one-way routes that facilitates social distancing, and we're continuing to apply the 2-meter social distancing measure within our museums. To support those visitor routes, we've created a raft of very distinctive signage, yellow and black signage that is common to all of the sites we've reopened, which makes it very clear to visitors the information they need to have when they arrive at site, but then also guides them through their visit. We've also installed protective screens at our reception points, sneeze screens as they're known, to protect our front of house staff. Those going into our museums will see, sort of as you would expect, regular hand sanitizer stations. We're limiting the numbers going into our sites very tightly. It's all about controlling numbers of people going through. As a rule of thumb, it's around 30% of normal fire limits for museum sites. So we are looking at limited numbers. For all of the museum service sites that are reopened, we're asking that people pre-book their tickets using the Art Tickets website. And that enables us to really control how people are coming into the museum, because they're actually not just pre-booking tickets, they're also pre-booking timed slots. And we've basically calculated for each of the sites how many visitors we can accommodate within each time slot to ensure that we stay within our overall COVID capacities. So for most of our sites, we're selling tickets on 15-minute intervals. And at sites like Lynn and Time and Tide, you're looking at about 10 people coming in per 15-minute slot. Larger sites like Gresson Hall, it's 15 per 15-minute slot. So it's all carefully managed, carefully controlled. So we're asking visitors to pre-book time tickets before they come to site. We're obviously complying with the test and trace requirements of government. So again, a lot of that test and trace information is being picked up through those online bookings, but we do have a paper-based system for other situations. And we'll be complying with the new test and trace requirements that come into effect on Thursday of this week, whereby we need to display a QR code unique to each individual site that enables people to log their entry into that site onto the test and trace app. So that's something we'll be applying at our sites that are open now, but also we'll be applying at Lynn Museum when it opens. We're also having to remain very flexible, as you would expect, in terms of what is a very fast-moving environment. So we've had to adapt our test and trace guidelines. We've had to accommodate face coverings moving from being recommended to being a legal requirement within museums. We've obviously had the rule of 6 introduced in the last week or so. So those are good examples of the way in which we're constantly having to review.
Robin.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the joys of remote connection.
That's okay. Can't manage that, I'm afraid. Just so aware.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So we're having to remain flexible.
Okay. So well, we got. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Before we go on to number 2, I just wanted to make sure. So do you have like a target date ready for the Lynn Museum to open?
At this stage, we're looking at sort of early part of October. We're currently looking at a number of options, but hopefully we think sort of second week of October. But as soon as we have the confirmed date, we will obviously notify the committee. But the first couple of weeks of October is the target at the moment.
Lovely, thank you. Okay. Everybody okay with that? Can we go on to number 2 in the report?
Okay, thank you, Chairman, and apologies for the connection. It's the Joys of remote working, isn't it? So,
Yes.
if Oliver was with us, he'd be doing this report, but basically to make members aware that there's been a lot of activity happening during the lockdown period, and that includes planning for the Thomas Baines exhibition, which is opening at the point at which we open the Lynn Museum to visitors. So we will actually open with the Thomas Baines exhibition, which is referenced in item 2.2. The exhibition will be a reduced version of what we'd originally planned, because we need to facilitate a sort of very clear one-way system through the museum. So the sort of typical temporary display setup we have in the Lynn Museum would not be appropriate for that. So the exhibition will be reduced, but will still be, we hope, of great interest to visitors. We've obviously been continuing to develop our online exhibitions, building on the exhibitions we've had for some time on the Google Cultural Institute website. And under item 2.6, there's reference to some of the online exhibitions that have been created. And 2.7 reference to the watch along events, which is something that's been a feature of the lockdown period, where the museum has sort of hosted screenings and then facilitated online discussion. So it's just an example of the creative way in which staff have been looking to use digital resources in different ways. Under 2.8, we obviously supported the VE and VJ commemorations, and there was a short film, and you've got the link in your committee report. There was a popular virtual dinosaur event under item 2.9 with Dr. David Waterhouse, our natural history curator, supporting some very lively interactions. And these are really just going on during lockdown, and across the service, staff have been really creative in terms of thinking of new ways in which they can maintain those contact with visitors and provide new ways to access collections and information, albeit in a very different setting.
Thank you. We'll pause just at number 2. I think it's to be congratulated, the amount of work I have actually seen on social media from the Lynn Museum staff. I think it's so important just to keep people involved in local history and allow people to be reminded of the Lynn Museum, because we want friends to remain visitors to the Lynn Museum. And of course, I feel social media is more open to people across the whole of our country, showing what we have here in King's Lynn, in the Lynn Museum, and the stories of Lynn. So I do feel you've done such important work, and for instance, the bringing back past work, which Clive Bond has been involved in, and I didn't see the dinosaur one, but I would imagine it entertained quite a few families, which is really, really good. So it's so important, I feel, just to keep people involved, and those who are at home and can got used to using social media now for entertainment. I think you've done really well. Has anybody got any other comments? No. No. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Dwally.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly about the paid traineeships. A little bit interested in those. How many applied? Is this the right place to ask this question? If not, let me know and I will ask it later. But it's with regards to the paid traineeships.
What page are you on?
I can't find it. I've read it this morning, and I thought, well, this is all very interesting. I wanted to know a little bit more about the paid traineeships. How many actually applied for the traineeships, and what? Let me have a look.
That's okay. Robin, if you like
It's
to.
it's learning and outreach. I'm
Yeah.
happy to do that under 6. I'll
Okay,
leave the
okay,
question
we'll
for the
leave that.
moment.
We'll,
Apologies for that.
I don't really want to start jumping ahead of. So I understand Councillor Bullen has got a question.
First of all, thank you very much for letting me join the meeting today. Hope everyone's okay. I'm just interested in figures for the how to dig up a dinosaur. I just wondered how many people were involved. If you've got that access to that. Thank you.
If Oliver Bone had been with us, I'm sure he'd been able to tell you straight away. But in his absence, I'll probably need to just clarify and get back to you on that one.
Excuse me, it says 24 households in the report, I think. 24 households.
Wonderful.
I don't know how many. I'm not sure how many individuals that represents. So if you,
that's pretty good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No, okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Rob, did I see your name on the chat?
Hello, Chair. You've frozen.
Hello, did I see your name? Yes.
If the museums haven't been open, you haven't been taking money, have we been adequately compensated by government?
So in terms of income, absolutely, we have as a service taken a hit from the fact that our sites are closed, and obviously we report on sort of our financial reporting is through the Joint Museums Committee. But we have certainly raised within the County Council the impact of the museum closures on our ability to generate income. So that's very well understood within the County Council, and we have made applications to relevant schemes in terms of emergency funding through the Arts Council, and we're waiting on the outcome of the latest of those applications. But the County Council is very well cited on the income impacts, absolutely, of having sites closed for an extended period.
Thank you, Robin. So the next item, number 3, other museum developments. Again, there's a very good report there, members, of there's the social media and the digital delivery which the museum has taken part in, including working with the Lynn News, providing a fortnightly picture this column, which is successful, and I think it's good, and also which I feel very pleased about is your Wednesday morning volunteer team. I'm sure they must miss that Wednesday morning meeting together and scanning and taking photographs of old prints and drawings which we have in our offices, but you've kept in contact with them, which is good. Robin, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, and also, Chairman, I can give you an update on some of our social media activity, if that was useful. We've had an update just ahead of this meeting to supplement what you've seen in your report. So just on the social media elements, we've seen growth of about 8% across Twitter and Facebook, which is about 300 new followers since February. So we now have a combined following of just over 3,800 over the two platforms. We've launched a YouTube channel during lockdown and produced 10 new videos, which have been shared across Facebook and Twitter. And we've shared more than 40 videos and slideshows across Facebook and Twitter since March. And our videos on Facebook received nearly 2,000 views in the period from the beginning of March up to the end of August, which is a 1,400% increase on the previous period.
That's good.
So that's that's just to give a flavour of the fact that this heightened digital activity is sort of reaching both existing and new audiences. Yeah. And our tweets, our sort of social media activity on Twitter has seen something like 41,000 impressions. That's the number of times our tweets appear in people's feeds, which suggests that they're interacting with them. And by April, that had gone up to 285,000 impressions. So it was 41,000 in February, up to 285,000 in April, and then dropped back down to about 70,000 in August, which is, I guess, reflecting the fact that people were much more active on social media in the middle of the lockdown period. And then we've seen really good levels of participation with our online tours. And we've seen, so the starting point was 300 in February. So before lockdown, we were seeing about 300 people accessing those tours in that month. That went up to just under 2,000 in March and 2,300 in April. So again, just showing an indicator of the demand for that online activity. And in terms of other digital activity, just to remind members that we are working on creating a record of these, frankly, extraordinary times through the Journeys Through a Pandemic initiative, which is all about recording experience of people in King's Lynn during this period. And this reflects other activity happening across the service, where we're not only collecting people's stories of COVID, but also contemporary collecting as well to provide a record of this time. In terms of the volunteers, absolutely, we are doing what we can to support our volunteers. As you say, we have a very dedicated band of Wednesday morning volunteers, and we're doing what we can to maintain contact with those volunteers remotely, and we've developed sort of remote projects for them to work on, so that they, we maintain that engagement, because we know how much value people put on that volunteering experience. So both within King's Lynn and across the service, we're doing what we can to maintain contact with those volunteers, but also provide them with opportunities to do useful work, albeit remotely. Thank you, Chair.
And of course, on 3.2, it mentions the Teaching Museum Trainee, which is such a successful scheme County Council have been involved with for many years now. So, Councillor Diwali, would you like to ask your question again, please, about the museum trainees?
Thank you. Yes, my apologies for being ahead of myself. The question is very simply about the training programs, when they're advertised, where they're advertised, how many respondents are there, and what is the, if you like, the aftercare after once a year has been completed, to make sure that they can move on to something appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've been running the Teaching Museum programme over several years now. I mean, we must be in about the 8th or 9th year of the Teaching Museum programme. It's a key part of Norfolk Museum Services National Portfolio Organisation agreed business plan with Arts Council England. So the key funding, if you like, comes from our Arts Council England National Portfolio Organisation funding. And that funds typically 4 to 5 traineeships a year. But over several years, we have enhanced the number of traineeships with additional project funding. So wherever we have a significant project taking place across the service, we will normally try to incorporate a teaching museum traineeship within that project funding. So for example, when we had the Voices from the Workhouse project running at Gressenhall, there was a teaching museum traineeship built into that funding. Likewise, with the Norwich Castle Gateway to Medieval England project running currently, again, there was a traineeship built into that. And that means in a number of years, we've been able to offer 8 to 10 teaching museum traineeships. This current year, 2020 to 21, we have 10 traineeships in place. 3 of those are actually funded through the Kick the Dust Youth Engagement Project, which is funded through the National Lottery Heritage Fund. you know, that's a good example of the sort of mixed economy we have. So most years we have between 6 and 10 traineeships on offer. Recruitment for those traineeships normally happens from about November time onwards, and they are advertised very widely nationally. And we normally have some briefing days organised for those that are interested in the traineeships, so they can find out more. Last year that was done online for the first time. There's then an application process, and the shortlisted applicants then attend a day-long assessment centre where there's a whole raft of different assessment activities. Application levels vary year on year, but normally we see 300 or 400 applications for these vacancies. So they're very competitive. There's no qualification requirement for people applying for the traineeships. So there's no requirement to have a degree or anything like that. There's also no requirement for them to have had any sort of actual museum experience. It's much more around attitude and aptitude. So we've had trainees of all different ages, including trainees who are doing this, looking to do this as a second career. And we've had trainees from lots of different backgrounds, including, you know, young people from quite challenging backgrounds who would normally face significant barriers getting into the museum sector. And the Teaching Museum programme is all around trying to diversify the sort of profession, if you like, and to provide opportunities for people to get really good quality training who would perhaps not normally find it so easy to get that first rung on the ladder. The traineeship lasts for 1 year. It is paid. The trainees are based within either a museum or a department. So over many years, we've had a curatorial trainee based between Lynn Museum in King's Lynn and Ancient House Museum in Thetford. We also have trainees based within our conservation and design and technical departments, for example. And they do, they're based with those departments or sites. They do good work within those sites and departments, but also 1 day a week attend a development program, which is like sort of more formalized training. And they're also given a mentor within the senior management team to provide them with general mentoring, advice and support. Obviously, this year has been really challenging because they started in April and basically commenced their traineeships during lockdown. So some of the trainees have literally never been onto the site where they're due to be working. So we've actually this year extended those traineeships by a few months to give them a better opportunity. In King's Lynn, we've had obviously at Lynn Museum, and that I think is the longest running traineeship. We also last year had additional trainees as part of a partnership project with the environment team from Norfolk County Council, who were working on the Coastal Treasures project. So 2 trainees based at the town hall who were supporting activities in the museums, but also working with the Trails team who sit within the County Council's wider environment team. So it's a really good programme. It's seen as a sort of national exemplar of good practice. Lots of people come and talk to us about how the programme works, and it's one that remains in high demand and very competitive to get into. But I think, you know, we do see a really diverse range of people getting into those traineeships, and a number of trainees have gone on to secure jobs with Norfolk Museum Service. But we traditionally have a really good hit rate of trainees going on to secure employment. So around 80% of trainees getting employment within what is a very competitive sector. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Robin. And I hope you're impressed with that, Councillor Diwali, because it is a really good scheme. And as Robin said, 80% of the teaching museum trainees have actually found work because they've been on this traineeship. So it's really good. Thank you. So back to the part of under the 3 report. And if we can leave kick the dust report for Rachel towards the end, please. And do you have anything else to add to number 3 report? And I think we've covered all that, haven't we?
Not on section 3, no, Chairman.
So the next item of the report is Friends of King's Lynn, and we are very fortunate to have some friends of the Lynn Museum. As the report says, they help towards sponsorship, raising funds for different projects. And we do have a member of the Friends of the Museum, Kim. Would you like to present your report, Kim? Lovely. Hello. Are you on mute? I think you're still on mute. I don't quite know why. No, can't hear. Perhaps we may have to leave it. It looked as though you came unmuted, but oh, are you on?
Is that okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent.
Well done. If you'd like to present your report, please.
Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me. Unfortunately, Susan couldn't make it today, so I'm actually the treasurer of the Friends. So as I think, as Robin said earlier, it's been a strange year. And from a Friends point of view, we've not been able to do everything that we plan to do from the point of view of helping with purchases and so on. But we've been going since 1957, so it's our 63rd year. We've got now 65 members, subscribing members who are Friends. And that has been reduced from 79 last year. So our membership is slowly dropping. And I think that's probably due to the age of our membership, one thing, but we are trying to recruit new members as Friends. And obviously we do that whenever we can. And obviously the museum actively support that as well. One good thing is that we get lots of donations from visitors to the museum. So although the membership subscriptions might be falling, the actual number of donations that come from people who visit the museum has gone up, strangely enough. And in a 6-month period this year compared to a whole year last year, we got more in donations this year than we did last year. So that's a positive thing. So we actively ask people who come to the museum to support the museum through donations, which then goes on to purchase things that the museum needs. We had a Christmas lecture from a chap called Brian Lemon on net mending, believe it or not, because obviously King's Lynn is a fishing community in the past, so that went down really well. So we had a Christmas lecture around net mending. We've got a committee of 4, and obviously that's again bringing additional pressures. We want to actually try and get more recruiting onto our membership, onto our committee. So this year with the coronavirus situation, we couldn't have an AGM. So what we did was we sent out our annual report and our financial reports and so on by letter to all our members. And one of the things we did ask people, if anyone was interested in joining the committee, then please do put their names forward. So we're looking for more membership on the actual committee, on the committee itself. The accounts have been audited. They were audited. Our annual year ends in September. So the accounts have been audited and all okay. The actual money that we've got on reserve is 9,800. So we've still got quite a bit of money on reserve for things that the museum might need. So obviously, as local artifacts come up, or if there's equipment that the museum need, then we'll be willing to help out on that. And that's about it, really. We had a few donations from other organisations, which was very useful. So that added to our funds as well. So that's about it, really. I think.
Thank you. That's good. You've received more donations. That it must reflect on how the visitors enjoyed the museum. So
yeah,
good news, isn't it? Good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and that was £1,000 in 6 months. So
yeah.
that's really good. So
Very good.
although, as I said, although the subscription income may be falling, the donations have held up. So that's good. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. I look forward, if it's going to be on display, the 2 sketchbooks which you've given a grant towards so that they can be conserved. I would imagine, will they be on display, Robin, when the Thomas Baines other paintings will be on? I don't know whether Robin can hear me.
Yes, Chairman, sorry, just trying to find my mute button. I will check on that. I know that they obviously had to revisit the original plan for the display, but I can check on that and get a response for you. But
thank you. Well, pass my well done to the committee of the Museum of Friends of the Museum. That's really good work, considering that we haven't been able to do any work since the middle of March. So you've done really well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, well done. That brings us down to item 5 in the report, the partnerships. As you can see, it's well documented there, all the partnerships the Lynn Museum works with. Work with King's Lynn Festival, and of course the Stories of Lynn is also mentioned. We also do work with True's when there's special events on as well, don't we? So that we all coincide with special events, encouraging people to visit each museum on their day visit to King's Lynn. So lots of good partnerships there. Is there anything you'd like to add to that report, Robin?
just to say, we're continuing to liaise with the festival in terms of their postponed programme. But as you say, Chairman, there's a lot of really good partnership working going on in King's Lynn, and I think you know, it's been really good to continue working with people, albeit in a different way during the lockdown period. But you know, I think that there is really good partnership working in King's Lynn, which sort of really sort of helps in these sorts of testing situations.
Yeah,
I don't think anything else to add on that section, though, Chairman.
Anybody want to make any comment or got a question on item 5? No. Because it's all in the report, isn't it? If you want to reflect back on. So
I think Councillor Bubb has a question, please.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Bubb, I didn't see the chat.
I was waving quite frantically.
Oh, I'm afraid if I can't see you on my screen.
Lucky you, yes. You've got very good partnerships going here in our borough. Do other parts of the county have similar arrangements with their local areas?
Yes, I think it's, I mean, each area is very different, so the nature of the partnerships tend to, again, be quite different. But I think, you know, across the county, we do work very closely with borough, district and city colleagues, albeit, you know, each district is different, but we have those close working relationships in other parts of the county. We're very actively engaged with supporting independent museums. Obviously, Norfolk Museum Service has the responsibility for supporting the County Museum Development Officer, Sue Booth, but also the Share Museums East programme, which provides advice and support to independent museums across not only Norfolk, but the rest of the region. So that inevitably means, you know, we have good connections into other sort of museums within the county. And then we have a lot of partnership relationships in terms of individual organisations, particularly around sort of learning activities. We're sort of actively supporting the cultural education partnerships, not only in West Norfolk, but also in other areas of the county where they exist, including Great Yarmouth and Norwich. So I think there's always been a really good, strong history of partnership working in Kings Lynn. And I think the Borough Council have a lot to do with that. And I think it's always been easy working in partnership in Kings Lynn, and that isn't always perhaps the case elsewhere. But I think we do, as a service, as a county joint service, we do work closely with district council partners and other organisations across the county. And in fact, we couldn't do our job without that type of partnership working, and it looks different in each location because each museum is different, each district is different, but that sort of openness to partnership working very much underpins the way we work across the county. And if we weren't working in that way, I think we would frankly struggle.
Yes, thank you. And of course, we do have the Joint Museums Committee, which meets is about every 2 months to take along our minutes, and then we agree certain policies for the county museum service as well. So we all do meet up. Okay, then, so the learning and outreach, well, we have discussed and spoken about the training, the museum trainees and schools. Now, schools, are they contacting you, the museum service, Robin, for extra work so that the school are still involved in local history, or what's happening
Yeah,
there?
so I think obviously we've been continuing to liaise with schools throughout the lockdown. Obviously, we put a lot of energy into providing digital resources to schools during the sort of summer term. And as we go into the autumn term again, as a service, actually looking to provide a whole range of digital resources to support schools as they go through the autumn term in what is, a very challenging environment for them. We're also beginning to sort of explore opportunities to resume limited face-to-face work with schools, again, when it's safe to do so. That phrase that's sort of tattooed on my forehead, I think, at the moment. But we are talking to schools about
You keep disappointing, Rob.
Sorry. We are talking to schools about opportunities to resume limited face-to-face work with them, probably after October half term. So the likelihood is there will be a mixed economy of most schools accessing online resources, but with potentially some schools wanting to come into the museum for limited face-to-face activities.
We're all frozen. I think we've all frozen. Is everybody frozen? Right. Okay. So welcome back those who have been unfrozen.
It's just you.
Oh, is
The
it?
others seem to be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I've been informed that's myself frozen, not everybody else. So, okay, well, thank you very much for that, Robin. So Kick the Dust. I know we have a really good report from Rachel, who's our person who works with the Kick the Dust young people, our learning and engagement officer. Would you like Rachel to take this full report, or because the beginning of the report mentions how many young people are involved throughout Norfolk, doesn't it?
Yes, Chairman. So if you're happy, I'll give an overview in terms of the Norfolk perspective, and then Rachel in her report will cover all the great work she's been doing here in Kings Lynn and West Norfolk. So just to remind members that Kick the Dust is a major project for Norfolk Museum Service, working with young people. It's funded through the National Lottery Heritage Fund. And I do actually have some updated participation figures for you. In the report you've received, you've got information up to the end of July, but I thought you might welcome updated figures, which go up to the end of August, and we can obviously share these as part of the minutes for this meeting. But during the lockdown period, the Kick the Dust team across the county have been very busy and very creative to ensure that we keep engaging with young people, mindful that many of the young people we are working with through this project are vulnerable or have a raft of issues that they're facing. So absolutely maintaining contact with them is really important. So up until the end of August, during the lockdown period, we've seen 940 interventions involving just under 400 individual young people who've taken part in around 490 hours of digital activity. So that's just during lockdown. We've had 17 Kick the Dust groups taking part in around 155 different digital activities. And we've also worked with an additional 10 groups of YMCA young people who've got involved in something like 75 different activities. Since the start of the project back in October 2018, we've now seen just over 7,000 interventions with 2,114 individual young people. And there's been something like 3,625 hours of activity delivered through the project. And with 2 years to go of the project, we're now on 87% of our target in terms of participation numbers. So a couple of telling things there in terms of the county-wide perspectives. The fact that the project team have worked really hard to maintain engagement activity with young people, but also have been really creative in finding different ways in which young people can be supported during this period. Within your report, you've got a detailed breakdown of the engagement figures. And we've also provided in the report, which I won't go into now, but a detailed case study looking at the art parcel initiative that was one of the key ways in which we responded to the challenges of lockdown. Mindful as well that a large number of the young people that we work with are in digital poverty, so they don't have ready access to or consistent access to online resources, and it recognizes the fact that not everybody can access digital resources in the same way. So the Art Parcel Initiative, which was around sending in total about 1,400 packs of art materials with heritage-based activities out to young people across the county, meant that for those that couldn't have access to digital resources or could only access limited digital resources were still supported during the lockdown period. So those packs of physical resources distributed to a really strong partnership to over 1,400 young people across the county of Norfolk, including a number of groups here in Kings Lynn and West Norfolk. And you can see in the case study listed not only the partner organisations, but also the list of organisations and groups that were in receipt of these art parcels. So it was a really complex project to deliver, involving a large partnership, but actually that partnership working has stood us in really good stead going forward. And the partners that were involved in delivering this art parcel initiative are still working together and looking at other ways in which they can cooperate going forward to support young people, both during COVID and post-COVID as well. So there'll be a long-term legacy from the Art Parcel Initiative in terms of those really strong partnerships at local and county level. So I just wanted to draw members' attention to that, and hopefully you will have a chance to look at the case study. And when Rachel comes on to present her report, she'll be able to give you some examples of the way in which Kick the Dust is supporting young people here in Kingston and West Norfolk. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, well, I was aware of this project because the Festival Bridge has been involved as well, which meant the local cultural education partnership as well. And I was really pleased because I believe, as well as the older people who've been children, it has been really difficult, this pandemic, for young people as well, not being able to meet people, not having organised lessons to attend and all that type of thing. So I think this is so important. And are you asking the young people how they felt about receiving these art parcels, or will you be doing a survey later?
Yes, we are doing that, and also we're asking the young people to create material for what will become a virtual exhibition. So that's part of the aim of the activities, is it gives them a chance to sort of showcase their work as well. So yes, we're sort of evaluating the impact of the art parcels, both in terms of the organisations, but also of course the young people themselves. And included in the case study is a very small number of quotes that give you a feel for the impact those parcels have had. So we are continuing to evaluate it, absolutely.
I can see many of them are vulnerable young people, which obviously need more help from those who have more steady relationships with family. So it's really, really good. I'm just looking in the chat to see whether anybody's put anything in. No? Anybody would like to ask a question or like to make a statement? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Robin, for that, going through that report. It's a really long report, which is full of information, and it's really good news to see everyone still involved with the public, bringing heritage to people's homes via social media. So thank you very much indeed. So our next item is item 7. Welcome, Rachel, who's based in the Stories of Lynn and is our Learning and Engagement Officer. If you'd like to take us through your report, please, to do with the Kick the Dust activities, etc.
Thank you. So Rachel Williams, I'm Learning Engagement Officer at Stories of Lynn. And just from my report, I thought if I quickly just lead you through that, it'll come across the Kick the Dust. Stories of Lynn has been open already since July, and although I'm Norfolk Museum Service employed, I am the service level agreement. So I'm working within the Borough Council's protocols and risk assessments. That doesn't mean that I ignore what's happening with the museum service, very far from it. Having worked through the risk assessments with the management team here, and introduced what I would need to do to be able to deliver activities. It's also been married across with the Norfolk Museum Service policies and protocols to ensure that I'm not leaving anything out that other services are working to. So that's been quite a big chunk of work to do, but it's been very, very helpful. And the more we rehearse these things, the more we can see the windows of opportunity where we could start to progress forward. I was lucky enough to do the summer holiday activities, where we had pre-booked family learning activities with a family bubble. That did go well. The numbers may look small to some, but I was very pleased to have 81 children with their associated 82 adults, because there's no guarantee that people were ready for August to come out. Although we might want to come out, it takes some courage sometimes for families to move out of the security of their homes. But they went well, and the model that we've tested through that of pre-booked family learning activities was going to be used when we move into October for the Kingston and West Norfolk History Festival that is currently being planned. We have to always understand that things may have to change, but at the moment we're planning for it to have some face-to-face elements as much as we can, but of course we'll go to virtual, solely to virtual, should we need to close down contacts again. For Kick the Dust, I'm really very proud of the young people. Some stayed with me right from the beginning, and are still working with us. So every Tuesday at 5 o'clock, Kick the Dust has been running. And one element of that I was pleased to share with you is that a young person had found things a little bit overwhelming, had drifted away, had stayed in contact, but they didn't join the meeting until about 3 weeks later. They came back to it, knowing that at 5 o'clock on Tuesday we would be there, and reintegrated into the group. Everybody was pleased. There was a sort of not a big hoo-ha made, but a pleased to welcome them back into the group. So I think that consistency has helped them to know we're there. We use Zoom for our meetings, just for 1 hour, because I think tiredness for concentration for young people is quite hard, especially as they were trying to juggle home learning. As part of the Tuesday group, that's our Time Turners group. They've all got names just so I know which collection I'm working with. The Time Turners had mentioned something about enjoying ancient Egyptians, and I was able to tap into the staff from Museum Service. So Dana came to help us with an online exhibition. And that has been sustained all the way through and went live just the end of last week. So you're now able to go on Google Arts and Culture website under the Lynn Museum umbrella, because this co-working gives us access to all these different groups and connections and platforms. So you could go on and see the Ancient Egyptians online exhibition by the Time Turners. I just wanted to share with you, because I always think it's nice to have quotes from people. One of the young people who works with us was even prior to this Time Turners group forming. When I emailed them late on Friday to say, have a look at the site, her mum came on and said, with a round of applause emoji, I'd just been on Google. Shannon was so pleased to see all the work they've done. It's fantastic that it is now worldwide. She was very happy about that. These are the sort of opportunities that we're able to give the young people. So Time Turners has continued. The online exhibition was created. We were waiting for them to upload it, and so we were looking for an activity that they wanted to add on to that, which was creating a board game. So I've had the opportunity to give them a chance to work with the Borough Council graphics team, and that game is in its final proof versions just before we get to do a hard copy for them to have at home. I'll send it to them to print, to play with their families as a kind of problem solving exercise to see if it works. But it's incorporated photographs from their exhibition that they did, the facts that they've learned. They created almost like a snakes and ladders version game, going through a pyramid, and they have cards which give your fortunes or curses at each step of where you land to. But they've taken great pride in that. I think it looks really, really professional, and I'd be really happy to share that with you another time when the finals come. But I think that will be something that maybe could go into the shop at Lynn Museum to associate it with the exhibition. And the young people who have there's budgets available to them that they can, delegated budgets that they can apply for. We're sitting with £500 waiting to do an open day, but that was allocated prior to lockdown, so we can't use it yet. But they're hoping that playing the board game will be one of the activities that they could use to recruit new people to Kick the Dust, because it would be a really nice way for them to see what young people can do. So that's a highlight for us. Numbers have dwindled probably to nearer 6 young people staying with me on and off over the time, but I'm pleased with that, and they know when we're running, so they can come to us. Some felt we've talked about it. I'm part of the Youth Advisory Board as well, that young people are getting digital fatigue, and that's something that we have to safeguard with them, because going to teaching and learning online as well as their activities, the fun activities online, does mean that when the chance to get out to the golf range and do putting practice one direction on their own, they took that in many times rather than staying in. But I think because we're consistent, we're there when they want to come back. Just going further through the joint working, I think we are very good at it. As part of Youth Advisory Board, I was in discussions. There were some young people asking about the Black Lives Matters protests, and it turned out that it actually would be really good to visit the International Slavery Museum on a virtual tour. So we did the nearest Friday to the Slavery Remembrance Day in August, and young people from both Kick the Dust and Youth Advisory Board came together. We did the virtual tour. And then for an hour and a half, we talked and toured. Then we sent them away to regroup at 3, having done a piece of artwork that responded to that project. And you'll see some images that I included in my report, a toolkit for social change. The boat is referencing that we use newspapers to share a lot of information, and that could be influencing us. And not always do we know if it's a balanced view. And the young girl drew the cuffs. One member of the team is from a mixed race family, and she was so very pleased that we were addressing that. Others are from a range of backgrounds, which is good. The positive of that, this Thursday, Dana and I are going to be running a Kick the Dust meets YAB joint project, because they asked for some continuation of this to see if we could do anything together. To kind of start us off, we're doing a Trafalgar exhibition for Stories of Lynn, because the Trafalgar dinner can't happen here, and because of Nelson's involvement with Wilberforce and the abolition of slavery elements, we're going to include that so that we've got a linked project that's small for them to get used to what's involved in exhibitions. Kick the Dust have more exposure to that, perhaps Youth Advisory Board young people haven't so much, so I think that will be a good way in, and we'll see how often that happens. I'm working on it called Equality, because I can then replace the QU with a KW, which K for the Kick the Dust and Yabbers at the bottom, at the end of it. So we have to find names we can reference, but Equality was something they were really keen on. The reprocessors did work with us before lockdown, and with the Single-Use Plastics Committee. They, to a certain extent, they've disbanded now because they're off to university or they're onto their employment. But again, the window will be there, and that has been included in the website. And when I share the media data with you at the end, that will have contributed to that, because the website was certainly much more populated once we included that on there for Stories of Lynn website. We're looking for developing again with Churchill Park and the youth offending team. All of these have happened, and we're hoping to pick up again when we're able to do more face-to-face opportunities. For most of those groups, it's too difficult online to work for them to work with us, as opposed to us finding it hard to work with them. Just linking to Kick the Dust again, you'll see this in my report. There's a rather lovely mummified cat, and that was a prize winner in the Digital Takeover Day for museums, Kids in Museums Takeover Day. Samuel won the national prize for that, and that was linked back to the arts projects and art pack, because although we designed our own for the West Norfolk Kings in Time Turners group, because we could give materials that were directly linked to the ancient Egyptians pack, that was one of the outcomes, was that actually they won a prize from that. Heritage Education Network, you were asking about schools' involvement. There's been varied responses here in Lynn to how many teachers have been asking for help, but one of the things we offer is the Heritage Education Network. We number it so that we can have success of how many meetings we've had. So HEN 3 was the third of the Heritage Education Network meetings. That happened in March, but then HEN 4 we did as a virtual meeting with Trews Yard was involved, but also the Minster, Lynn Museum, Stories of Lynn, Historic England, Kate Argyle presented for them as well. They fund this meeting for teachers. It was a virtual meeting, and I think we had 8 schools represented. So we're offering support that way. HEN 5 is in the pipeline for November. Virtual probably, almost certainly, and hen 6 possibly January, may be able to get perhaps a socially distanced group face to face. We take the lead from topical things that are happening, but Kate Argyle was suggesting that maybe revisiting the Black History work that we did would be a good one, although we'll have a look when we get nearer the time. And Hen 6 may well be a film version of the scroll that has come out of the Heritage Learning Forum. It was a play written, commissioned by Historic England through the Borough Council and the Heritage Learning Forum, and that should be made into a film, which will give teachers access to, and schools, a 30-minute film depicting the kind of key points through history. It was a really good play, very funny, very accessible, but told the history from 1204 to current day. So that's going on. And what else have I got to tell you about? I just wanted to make sure that I picked up on all of the follow-up projects. I think we've got all of those. The data, the media, social media data, I've had permission to share. So if you just enable me to go, let's see if I can just get to share that document. Sorry. I just got to tick over. I'm working double screen. Here we go. So this is the one I'd like to show you. So you'll see from here, it's a very basic level of analysis for our social media. So the table is showing you Stories of Lynn data for Facebook, Twitter and website in the first, second and third sections there. The commentary is just really looking at that flow of numbers over the lockdown period to date. We had the most number of likes on Facebook. It was highest in September. We had a peak in page views in August, with the holiday activities being the height then. The reach peak with posts for the summer and VJ Day, because of course we took part in VE and VJ Day, and those were hosted onto the Stories of Lynn website. So I think those have made an enormous difference. And engagement higher over the holiday activities. So it was good to have taken part in those. Twitter, we had the lowest number of tweets, but not the lowest number of impressions, which is suggesting to me that this total number of followers gaining 13% over from April to September means that we've got more people looking now. We've got a higher number of followers. And the website, this understanding what the figures mean, can sometimes you think, oh, a lower number may not be as good a score, but the bounce rate is, it's better if it's lower, because it means that people are staying a little longer on there. The average time on site, I did check today, is with a good average time would be 2 seconds, which sounds incredibly slow, and I needed to check that because 2 and 1.3 felt very small numbers, but 1's okay. We'd like them to stay longer, but it is good. And the number of people here searching for Stories of Lynn, it dropped off in June. There was a lot at the beginning where we picked up on our social media, doing more tweets, and then it settled back out a little bit, perhaps as people have got to the end of the summer and they're now back into school and more into work. So that's the data that can be circulated to you all, so you have copies if it hasn't already. I'm just leaving that data there and wonder if there's anything anybody can add or question.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Rachel. Again, lots of good work with young people, which is so important. And do you feel that Churchill Park will, are they just waiting for face-to-face meetings, or do you think it could be possible virtually through school time, perhaps?
what the discussions I've had, and I had an email just on Friday from Claire Eek, who is the link teacher that I work with in classes. We're really enthusiastic about working with them. Transport is a real issue for them because the school is in a situation financially that means there can be less use of minibuses, which they used to have on site. So transport is difficult. They used to come by public transport. That makes it much harder. So it's unlikely that there will be visits to the museum until after Christmas for them. We're talking about perhaps because online teaching is really very difficult for all children, but children with additional needs, it can add challenges because the reality, the interpretation of things through screen, being able to take all the extra information. So it was felt that originally we wouldn't do a lot of talking and teaching through that. There is plenty we could do with handling activities where they've perhaps collected a metal spoon, a wooden spoon, a plastic spoon, and I can show them the silver ones or here so that they have something to handle at their end and actually feel. But what the teacher has said is that it would be good for us to start introductions online so that they get to see me as a familiar figure on their screens in school, so that we initiate those responses and start to build that relationship now. So it's not a no from either side. It's just trying to support the needs of those children and young people. But we're planning all sorts of things like getting them involved in creating exhibitions here and finding ways of linking with the museum, perhaps doing mini tours or interpretations. Particularly sensory interpretations. So we think there's a lot of work we could do on making collections accessible to these young people, and they can help with the choices and the descriptions in order to make it accessible for others. So I think that it's well on the way, but it's just trying to make sure that everybody's safe in the process. The PPE needing to be there and protocols.
And it's also good that Historic England with Kate,
yes,
still managing to meet and having your group meetings with the staffs, which is a good sign, isn't it, that the teachers still want local history involved with the school, so it's very good.
I mean, I have a school that's just emailed me again last week saying, we know there's changes afoot and we know, but we were still really keen to come if we can. So I think those that are feeling more comfortable with moving out still want to. It's certainly not people restricted. There are other schools that are saying we're just staying in our bubble for the year and they don't want to come up. But we respect all of that. We want to make sure.
Definitely must be. And Kick the Dust is just so inspirational for a lot of the young people you're working with. So again, it's a really good project, isn't it, for these young people? I'll just see whether there's anybody in the chat line to see whether there's any questions. Anybody would like to ask a question or a statement? Or nobody's in the chat line as far as I can see. No. Well, anyway, thank you very much, Rachel. It's good work everyone's doing with young people. It's really good, and it's also good to have this meeting to know it's happening, because we are also important, and young people have got a life ahead of themselves, and we cannot forget them just because of the pandemic. We need to keep them inspired, don't we, with culture and history.
When one of the people who we're losing is going off to university as a result of getting an unconditional offer because he wanted to go and do media at Lincoln and was helping with the Southgate's film project and was able to write about that in his application. The conversation came because I said, oh, are you bored because you're just doing what you do at college? No, not at all, because I can now use all of this. And next thing I know, he's now going to Lincoln this year. So it is really successful. We're seeing lots of people moving into things that they would never have had the opportunity to do, just experience the world. So it is very good.
Yep, right, it's inspiring them into nice things. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, everybody, so that's been a really good meeting, keeping up to date with what's going on. I'm sorry Oliver hasn't been able to link in with us, but I'm sure we'll see him
Chairman, I can add that he failed in his attempt to get into Zoom, but he's been watching the live feed. He tells me by message, so he's been with us in spirit.
Yeah, good, good. We'll be able to meet one day, hopefully. If not, our next meeting, which is arranged for the 18th of January, if it means we all have to remain safe on Zoom rather than face to face, we will meet on the 18th of January. And of course, let's keep our fingers crossed that the Lynn Museum will be able to open towards the end of October, ready for the Thomas Baines new exhibition. But if not, it will be digitized. I feel sure about that. So,
and Chairman, we'll make sure members are informed at the point at which we've got a definite opening date.
Good, lovely. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll meet again on the 18th of January. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Cheerio.
Bye all.